This is a sports catastrophe production. Hey there, hi there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another sports catastrophe on this day. And on this day, March 10th, 1959, a new era in baseball ownership happened. Well, yeah, this guy actually did have another franchise. Like he owned other franchises, but basically this was one of the major franchises, the team that basically a lot of people wanted to be like in the 1910s and 20s. Yeah, of course, that was like 2 decades earlier. But anyway, Bill Veeck bought the Chicago White Sox. He was the principal owner of the Milwaukee Brewers. I think a minor league team, if memory serves me right, because yeah, minor league baseball with Milwaukee, the Cleveland Indians, the St. Louis Browns, and the Chicago White Sox. He was alive from 1914 to 1986. He made a lot of things happen. One year, when he was owner and team president of the Indians in 47, he actually signed Larry Doby to integrate the American League, which meant that blacks could play in the American League, and won the World Series. The last World Series in Cleveland history was based on Bill Veeck. Veeck was the last owner to purchase a baseball franchise without an independent fortune and is responsible for many innovations. He would be the White Sox owner for 2 decades, which is amazing. And he's in the Hall of Fame in 1991. Bill Veeck actually was born into ownership. His father, Bill Veeck Sr., was president of the Cubs and all that. He ended up becoming president of the Cubs, even though he was a local sports writer. We would call him some hell he would ride the Cubs differently. And the team's owner basically put him up to it. In fact, Bill Veeck Jr. is actually the guy who came up with planting the ivy on the walls at Wrigley Field. At age 23, wow. So Veeck actually was in a syndicate with former Cubs manager Charlie Grimm and purchased the AAA Milwaukee Brewers. And Veeck sold this team for a profit of over $275,000. So yeah, it was huge. Despite him being co-owner of the of the AAA team, Veeck served 3 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, an artillery unit. Unfortunately, a recoiling artillery piece crushed his right leg, preventing amputation first of the foot and shortly after of the leg above the knee. Over the course of his life, he had 36 operations on that leg. He had a set of wooden legs and actually would cut the holes in them to use as an ashtray. You would never know he had a wooden leg. Veeck was different. He actually was a fan of the Negro Leagues and all that. Veeck almost bought the Philadelphia Phillies, but he wanted to buy the Phillies and stop the team's rosters with Negro League stars. Unfortunately, Veeck's problems were that he actually alerted the MLB commissioner Kennesaw Landis about his intentions. And Landis was an ardent segregationist, which means obviously he was a racist piece of shit. The National League decided to take over the Phillies and seek the new owner. Basically, there was a lot of problems. But they said that Veeck may have invented the story because Philadelphia's black press didn't even make a mention of sale to Veeck. So basically, there was a lot of issues and all that. However, Veeck did get an MLB team, the Cleveland Indians, in 1946, and immediately put the team's games on radio, and moved the team from League Park to the large Cleveland Municipal Stadium. You know that stadium. The Mistake by the Lake. Where the Browns Red Right 88 and the drive and all that. In 95 it closed down because the Browns were moving to Baltimore, and then all of a sudden, the Indians moved to a new ballpark. Yeah, that stadium. He would sign Larry Doby, the first black player to play in the American League, in July '46. Basically, all the guys put out their hand, but 3 people didn't. But Bill Veeck got rid of those 3. All that. Veeck even signed Satchel Paige to a contract, even though he was the oldest rookie in MLB history. To take advantage of the large size of Cleveland Municipal Stadium, Veeck actually had a center field fence installed in '47, which he could move in or out depending on how the distance favored the Indians against their opponents in a given series. It moved as much as 15 feet between opponents. But the American League basically made a rule change that fixed the distance of an outfield wall for the duration of a season. He could change the dimensions every season, but obviously not every match. Veeck actually wanted to trade Lou Boudreau, the heart and soul of the Indians, to St. Louis, well, to the Browns, who became Baltimore in 1954. But there were a lot of protests, and Veeck listened to his fans and gave Lou Boudreau a 2-year contract. And it worked. In 1948, thanks to Boudreau's .355 batting average and his strong play in the one-game playoff against the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park, may I add, Cleveland won its first pennant since 1920 and beat the Boston Braves. It would have been a cross-town series between the Red Sox and Braves. But anyway, yeah, the Braves faced the Indians. Kind of a politically incorrect World Series. Famously, Veeck actually buried the 1948 flag because he thought that his team couldn't repeat his championship in 1949. Unfortunately, his first wife, Eleanor, filed for divorce, and most of his money was tied up in the Indians, so he was forced to sell the team to fund the divorce settlement. After marrying his second wife, he got an 80% stake in the St. Louis Browns in 1951. He actually tried to force St. Louis out of town, the Cardinals out of town. So he hired Rogers Hornsby and Marty Marion as co-managers, former Cardinal greats, and Dizzy Dean as announcer. And he basically decorated the park, Sportsman's Park, which both the Cardinals and Browns shared, with Browns memorabilia. Ironically, the Cardinals had been the Browns tenants since 1920, and they passed the Browns as St. Louis' favorite team, and they were more successful. Anyway, Veeck's biggest publicity stunts had to do with the Browns, including Eddie Gaedel, who was 3'7" and was the shortest person to be in a Major League Baseball team. He was pinch hit. He was sent to the plate to pinch hit in the bottom of the first. He wore 1/8 on his uniform number, was walked on 4 straight pitches, and then pulled for a pinch runner. Gaedel would come back for a few more publicity stunts from Veeck. But anyway, yeah. Shortly afterwards, Grandstand Manager's Day, involving Veeck, Connie Mack, and thousands of fans, enabled the crowd to vote on in-game strategic decisions by holding up place cards. The Browns won that game 5-3, but Major League Baseball stepped in saying that the fans could not run part of a baseball team. In short, of course, the Eddie Gaedel thing. They basically made a rule that you can't have players come in to Major League games for publicity stunts. Veeck had suggested that the American League clubs share radio and TV revenue with visiting clubs, trying to counter the powerful Yankees, who basically had too much broadcasting revenues. But he was outvoted. He refused to allow the Browns' opponents to broadcast games played against his team on the road. And basically, the league said they would eliminate the St. Louis Friday night games. All that. A year later, the Cardinals owner was convicted of tax evasion, and he had to put the team on sale. Veeck might have gotten his wish that the Cardinals would be out of town. However, rumors circulated that there were interests that put the St. Louis Cardinals in Houston. The former owner actually accepted a much lower bid from St. Louis-based Anheuser-Busch to keep the Cardinals in town. Unfortunately, Veeck realized that because of Anheuser-Busch's wealth, he couldn't do anything. So basically, he decided to move St. Louis out of the Browns out of St. Louis, and he sold the park to the Cardinals. The rumors that Veeck was going to consider moving the Browns back to Milwaukee because the Milwaukee played the 1901 season before they were the St. Louis Browns. Milwaukee used Milwaukee County Stadium to entice the Browns. However, the problem was that the Boston Braves were having financial troubles. So basically, with the Braves holding the major league rights to Milwaukee, they actually had the right, and they decided to have the team. So Boston basically moved to Milwaukee. So basically, yeah. Veeck actually got in touch with a group trying to bring Major League Baseball to Baltimore. And he decided to sell it to Baltimore and all that. And the team moved to Baltimore and has much more success in Baltimore than St. Louis. Veeck actually ended up becoming head of a group that purchased a controlling interest in the Chicago White Sox in 1959. And it actually worked out perfectly because the White Sox won the 1959 AL pennant despite losing the World Series to the Dodgers in 6. And the White Sox broke a team attendance record for home games with 1.4 million fans. And then they broke that record with 1.6 million fans as Veeck and the White Sox brought in the first exploding scoreboard in the major leagues, producing electrical and sound effects and shooting fireworks whenever the White Sox hit a home run. The White Sox would also add players' last names on the back of their uniform, which 25 teams do on all their jerseys, and 28 out of 30 teams do on road jerseys. The placement of players' names on jerseys was adopted by the AFL in the 1960s and more prevalent in U.S. sports by the 70s. In fact, the scoreboard was moved to the new Comiskey Park in 1991. However, Veeck made a strong bid to get the AL expansion franchise in Los Angeles. Hank Greenberg would have been the principal owner. Veeck would have been a minority partner. But basically, O'Malley didn't like it. And O'Malley did have his exclusive franchise rights for Southern California. And O'Malley would not allow Veeck anywhere near Los Angeles. Veeck was in poor health in 1961 and sold his share of the White Sox for $2.5 million. And it became a TV commentator for ABC and moved to the eastern shore of Maryland to get better. His health did improve. He tried to buy the Washington Senators baseball team in 1969. And then somehow he repurchased the White Sox in 1975 from John Allen, the guy he sold his share to. So Veeck, after 14 years away, became the owner again. It wrangled baseball's establishment. People thought he was a pariah after exposing industry politics and maneuvering in his 1961 book. And was not happy with the unfavorable discussion of the 64 Yankee purchase of the Yankees by CBS in a book. However, Chicago was struggling financially and all that, and he was the only potential buyer to keep the White Sox in Chicago after there was an offer to move the team to Seattle. After initial votes rejected his White Sox bid, Veeck said that he had a lawsuit ready. Another vote was taken and Veeck was approved. But immediately after resuming control of the Sox, Veeck had another stunt. He conducted 4 trades in a hotel lobby in view of the public. However, 2 weeks later, an arbitrator's ruling struck down the reserve clause and ushered in the era of free agency, leading to dramatic increases in player salaries. Veeck actually supported Curt Flood when he was trying to ask to to veto a trade because, he didn't want to play for Philadelphia because of racism. Strange as it sounds, that Veeck actually helped Minnie Minoso coming in 1976 to get some at-bats, becoming one of the first players to get the 4 decades in the major leagues. In 1980, he got Minoso to 5 decades. He radically altered the uniforms, including shorts, which the White Sox wore against the Kansas City Royals in 1976. Obviously, that was past. That was basically just a one-off. He developed a rent-a-player model on the acquisition of other club stars in their option years. In 1977, the White Sox won 90 games and did decently, with additions of Oscar Gamble and Richie Sisk. Unfortunately, though, of course, the White Sox did lose their first game of the season in 1977 because guess who debuted? That's right, the Toronto Blue Jays. April 7th, 1977 was their first ever Blue Jays game. And the White Sox lost 9-5. Veeck actually had announcer Harry Carey sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" during the 7th inning stretch. Carey refused to sing for the whole park, but Veeck said he had a recording, so Carey was screwed no matter what. So he decided to sing it live, accompanied by the organist. And basically, it brought a lot of people out liking that and all that. In 1979, Veeck, with assistance from his son Mike and radio personality Steve Dahl, held Disco Demolition Night. Obviously, that was a big failure. The White Sox sucked in Game 1 of the doubleheader. They did the disco records, but the fans who really were anti-disco were basically making a stance that rock and roll was here to stay and disco was out the door, even though disco was starting to decline a bit. So that's the day disco died, in a sense. Veeck sold the White Sox in 1981. And following the sale, the new White Sox owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, who would soon own the Chicago Bulls and the Arizona Diamondbacks, among others, said that basically Veeck's tenure was negative. So Veeck decided to have his allegiance back to the Cubs. However, he would die in 1986 of lung cancer because he was a heavy smoker and drinker for a while. Mike Veeck would not recover from Disco Demolition Night and basically was blackballed for a while. But he became owner of the independent St. Paul Saints and all that. So yeah. Yeah, that was weird. But yeah, Bill Veeck got into the Hall of Fame for all the right reasons. I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.